I also just want to give a proper shout out to Ross, who's not even here to hear it. Too bad. Ross, our avid rainforester, who is always looking out for us in the background with anything Zoom. He does that kind of work with SAIT and the UFC, and he really helped us out last week when we were having challenges with our links, and I didn't get to thank him publicly. So thank you, Ross. So we would like to acknowledge the lands that we all work and play on, whether they be on Treaty 7 or Treaty 6, or if you're working elsewhere in the country. But we would like to acknowledge those territories within Treaty 7, the unceded lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, and the Métis Nation Region 3. And within Treaty 6, the unceded territories of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, as well as the Métis of that region. So whether you are in Alberta today or not, or in another region within Alberta, we ask that you take a moment to have gratitude for these wonderful lands that we get to live upon. And I'll pass it over to Gil.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Bridget, and welcome everyone to the Rainforest today. As you know, the Rainforest Alberta is Alberta-wide, and we're a community of innovators, doers, dreamers, connector, builders of the innovation system, and supporting innovators across the province. Next slide, please. This video sums it up well. Oh, do we have a click? There we go.
What does it take to realize an idea, or for a seed to sprout? At Rainforest Alberta, we know the answer is rooted in trust. Traditionally, Albertans have cultivated their ideas in established systems. Inputs that don't fit these systems are weeded out. Opportunities for growth are missed. But now, Albertans want a dynamic landscape that can evolve organically, like a rainforest. At Rainforest Alberta, we believe a culture of trust is the fertile soil where ideas grow. Our budding innovation ecosystem is a network of relationships pulling each other up as they push forward in their own field. Trust breaks down barriers. An open, inclusive network increases collaborative innovation. Successful breakthroughs inspire new ideas. A cycle begins. Rainforest Alberta is a movement to amplify trust by cultivating honesty, inclusion, and accountability. How? Our social contract holds us accountable to demonstrate trust across the province. We meet to have honest conversations around collaboration. This leads to more inclusive spaces for everyone to fearlessly build new ideas together. By raising the standard of trust, Alberta's ideas, talent, and resources can be evergreen. Visit rainforestab.ca to sign the social contract and start growing together.
Thank you very much. Of course, the regulars will recognize that there are 6 pillars that guide our conversations, all weighted in different ways: culture, leaders, resources, engaged activities, policy and infrastructure, and role models. The right balance is crucial. So tips to making most of this session, Lunch Without Lunch, is introduce yourself in the chat, connect with individuals through direct messaging, put your camera on. We'd love to see and meet and have relationships with people. To the previous discussions, sometimes we can do more via Zoom than perhaps we can do in person, as much as we miss the in-person sessions. Feel free to ask questions, especially putting them in the chat. Keep connecting on Rainforest Slack workspace, and check out the lunch notes and the recordings posted on YouTube. Next slide.
I think that's the wrap. We've added this slide here just as a point of conversation, Gail, so I'll maybe just touch on why.
Sure.
Okay, so just a little idea Amber and I had. We talk about our social contract all the time. It truly is like the essence of the rainforest movement, the values within the social contract. If you haven't signed it, we'll throw the link in the chat. But they really do drive that optimal behavior that accelerates innovation. And that is what this movement, the rainforest, is all about. So each week we're going to just highlight one of our values after our intro to just bring attention to it and bring some more awareness to this social contract that we have all, majority, if you haven't signed, please look into it. but majority of us have committed to living by. And so while I personally don't think the wording is bang on for all of our values, the essence is there. And so this is the first value in the social contract, diversity. And what we've agreed to doing is embracing diversity, strive to create equal opportunity for every person, and being open to meeting anyone in this community. And the community doesn't just mean the folks who show up to Lunch Without Lunch every week, it's the broader entrepreneurial ecosystem and everyone who plays within it. And so a lot of what this hour is about, if you're newer to the rainforest, is about connecting and colliding with unlikely suspects, people you may not meet elsewhere. And so we hope that you come with the spirit of diversity today and openness to meeting each other and giving back to each other. And with that, I'll turn it over to Amber, who is going to introduce the entrepreneurs we have to share their story through the lens of a social contract today.
Thanks, Bridget. So I'm very excited to introduce Guillermo. Guillermo Salazar is the CEO and co-founder of ICwhatUC. He's a 20-year technology entrepreneur with one exit to Deloitte in 2013. He founded Celesto Solutions, a managed cloud services implementation firm, which he left to start ICwhatUC. Along the way, Guillermo also grew Raven Hockey, a high-performance hockey stick company for junior athletes, which was featured on Dragon's Den, ESPN, TSN, The Score, and many others. To tell us more about the story, I'm going to pass the mic over to Guillermo. Welcome.
Thanks, Amber. Appreciate it. Great to meet everybody. Wonderful. Really proud to be here. I attended my first Rainforest meeting in 2016. 2016. I think winter 2016, back in the old Kensington office. So that's what I would have signed my Rainforest contract back then. It was a paper process, which is kind of funny looking backwards, but where we are today. So very excited to share. I can start talking, Amber, and I might not stop in 59 minutes. So what's the best way to run this to make sure it's interesting for everybody?
Yeah, just share your story. We're all just curious to know about the story behind ICwhatUC, and yeah, we'll probably have lots of curious questions in the chat. And we want to hear from you. Perfect,
no worries. So I came out of university here in Calgary in 20 years ago, not 20s, earlier than that, and then started a career with a company called OmniLogic. So I was hired by Evan Hugh out of university. So many of you might know Evan. He's big give backer for sure between Rainforest, and actually also how I got introduced to Rainforest in the very beginning. I worked with Evan for about 5 years for his company and did a bunch of consulting work, and ended up working kind of early on in the analytics and data space, and then moved on my own for a bit, was independent for a number of years, and then started a company called Quattro Integration Group with 3 other co-founders. We grew Quattro into about 65 consultants, with some subs in there in the mix, and sold out to Deloitte in 2013. And then 2013, I worked at Deloitte for 3.5 years, ran a big part of their national data analytics practice for the SAP side of things for 3.5 years, and then exited. That's when I started Celesto. I started doing stuff with the Rainforest. And what was kind of interesting in terms of what's special about the Rainforest contract is at the time after I exited Deloitte, I really was kind of I wasn't really able to work because of the exit arrangement with Deloitte. And so I was kind of trying to find out some things in which I could do and keep myself busy and out of my family's hair. And so I started just doing some free consulting work, free advisory work for anybody who would help. And so a lot of the contacts came through Rainforest. And it started out back then doing a lot of Canvas work and helping people make decisions, helping companies get coordinated for pitches and all that kind of stuff. So lots of good work there. And then and from that, I got connected, and the point of the story is actually nested in the whole spirit of Rainforest. Is from Rainforest and some of the work I was doing, I got connected with Derek Hunter and a group called Valhalla Angels. And then from Valhalla Angels, I met my 2 co-founders for ICwhatUC. And so the whole story about it all being connected and everyone being interchanged and offering introductions and going first, all those core principles of Rainforest help nest the opportunity to create this company that we're building right now. And what's really exciting about all of that is that the ability to from our position of being able to give back early and give back continuously has all come back to us. So I would attribute a lot of our success and connections and where we are today due to all the people that have helped us along the way. So certainly it's been a bilateral arrangement. And I would say, by and large, everybody that, you know, I'll say personally, I'm benefiting a whole lot more than what I've given back. And so the story is always to give back as much as you possibly can, because it seems to be paying itself out even in an exponential way. So very special about that. So wonderful. So just kudos to all the Rainforest community for keeping true to the purpose. I'm really a net benefactor of that whole relationship. And again, I've been a big part of everybody, or I've been very supportive of the whole ecosystem. So going back to ICwhatUC, how we started the company. So every founder has to have a founding story, and I hope everyone can appreciate mine. So I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids, wife, dog, that whole story. And when you go on vacation as a dad, you've got kind of like one really important job, and that's to count and count obsessively. So you count people, passports, plane tickets, check-ins. You count, you know, at the time, iPods, earplugs, chargers. You count luggage. You count check-ins. You count everything, carry-on baggage. And for me to have peace with my crazy mind, I like to make sure that whole package of all that counting is packed inside the car prior to departure the night before, so that I can have a good night's sleep, because I know the next day is going to be insane. A lot of barking goes on throughout this process, and it's barking / parenting. Either way, that's kind of how it works in my house. But there's a certain moment of peace that happens when everything is packed inside the car, that you can finally sit back, have a drink, and know that you're good to go. And again, everything's been counted twice, 3, 4, 5 times at this point in time. So we're ready to go on a trip. Car's packed, ready to go, and the garage door won't open. And now I'm faced with the reality. Like, I've been barking at people to get going for quite some time now, and we've checked in, so now the clock is ticking. And now my beautifully packaged unit of all of my different items, I'm slowly realizing has to become undone, which is a moment of stress for me. Not to mention everybody that I've been urgently prodding to get in the car to get going. They've all had other things to do. They have, they're all staring at me like I'm a garage door expert and I should be able to figure this stuff out. So I go to, like everybody else, I go to YouTube, I check it out, I try to figure out how to get this package undone. And the garage door will not open. It is fixed. It is, and I've pulled the levers, pulled all the things, and nothing is changing. So plan B quickly emerges, get everybody into 2 cabs, because we're a family of 5. Can't put them in 1 cab. And so now we split everything that's been nicely packaged up, sent to the airport, we go on vacation. The whole time on vacation, I'm thinking about the situation. We get back and finally get the technician comes to the house. He goes, "Oh, if I could only seen what you were looking at, I could have shown you there was this little switch here. That'll be $175. And at which point I was like, this ridiculousness has to stop. And so I was sitting actually in one of my co-founder, Luke's office at the time. And I said, "Luke, we gotta, let me tell you a story what happened. I'll show you a story what happened to me. And this is ridiculous." And he said, "I'll tell you a funny story. I've had my telco provider at my house 5 times to try and get my internet installed in my new house. And each time they come with the wrong part, the wrong person, the wrong tools. And we look at each other and go, this is a big business. This is something we got to fix." And so we quickly got a product to market with a subcontractor. In about 60, 90 days, we started selling and selling and selling. And the idea was that we were pitching customer experience, pitching value to end customer, and reducing truck rolls. Interestingly, our very first market wildly rejected the concept of reducing truck rolls, because they're the kind of people that get paid $175 to come flip a switch at your house. So they rejected the concept of what we could actually pitch. And so now we have this idea, we've got some technology, and now we've got to go find a market for it, because the friction still exists. We just need to find the buyer for the that wanted to relieve the pain of the friction. And so doing some more and more research, we realized there's an audience of service providers that operate under the guise of customer service or warranty, and that's a big market. And so we learned that there's 750 million truck rolls that roll every single year in North America, cost the industry around $260 billion a year, and roughly $300 a truck roll. And so what can we do to mitigate those truck rolls and eliminate them from the ecosystem, so we can make a much more efficient, effective, safer, less GHG, and really solve this point of friction that happens within the service relationship. As we kind of got into more and more customers, they started coming to us with use cases. And so our customers we'd spend some time with our customers, and they'd be like, "Hey, you know what? We also roll trucks for this. We also roll trucks for that." and slowly began to expand our portfolio of service of kind of use cases, originally from customer service area through into estimations, installations, getting into quality assurance, training, inspection, and all sorts of, we call it the service wheel, basically from awareness through to handover and completion. And along the way, we got lucky with some really good customers. And again, I say the word lucky, but it all actually has a lot to do with being ready and a lot of the relationships we had. Our very first customer meeting came from somebody I had met through Rainforest and was an innovation leader at ATCO. And ATCO came on, was our very first customer, second customer, I can't remember, but they bought big. And they really pushed us forward. And this is big. This is in 2018, 2019. So for all of 2019, we were working with ATCO and a couple other big companies doing virtual service. And so prior to COVID, we had kind of established a lot of the beta, worked through a lot of the work that we had, and learning a ton about the people changes and the process changes that were being affected by our technology. And so we worked through that in a lot of 2019, and in a spirit of entrepreneurialism, I was still doing consulting work for Celesto, and so I was traveling a bunch back and forth to internationally, and so it wouldn't be uncommon for us to be pitching to customers while we were in international areas, like either in a Bogota airport, in a hotel room somewhere else. And Luke and Danny were also doing other work as well. Now it came into end of January 2020 when we kind of made the commitment. So I had finished a consulting stint and had really very little interest in going back into consulting work at the time, and started saying, well, I need to focus some more time on ICwhatUC. And so I began to go I went full time, and then the next couple of months, Danny and Luke also were able to shift their priorities, and they were full time as well. And you can imagine, basically coming into like March, April 2020, and this all happened very quickly, right? So my last billable day was January 30th, 2020, and the world was still, catching colds, and that's all we cared about, right? Super Bowl had just finished, and the month of February, we're kind of ramping up, hearing about what's going on, and having no understanding what this is going to mean to our world. Coming to March 12th, 2020, and the world changes overnight, right? Schools are locked down. We all live that calamity, and our service all of a sudden became a business continuity must have. And so you can imagine like the scale frustration we felt. Like, I mean, the month of April, Danny, who was running product at the time, I don't think he slept. Like we're just coming out of like an MVP that had been proven out by 1 or 2 or 3 technicians using them kind of independently, nothing in parallel. So all of a sudden, like running all this stuff in parallel, we're learning about bugs in the system, and everybody's online. And our biggest customer, ATCO at the time, they were serving customers in what had been also a very cold April. And so all of this is happening all at once, and we're like, basically, like the system is crashing, things are breaking. It was wild, and we got through all of that, and then made some major changes to the system, the architecture. Kind of like, again, this the whole analogy of building the airplane while you're taking off. This was very, very true. We didn't know what parts were failing at the first design because it really never been stress tested like that before, and we got a lot of help from AWS. AWS like put their hand up and said, well, you're blowing up here, you're blowing up here. You need to get some coverage here. We'll help you out with that. This architecture isn't going to work for this kind of scale. And they coach us on how we can make things better. And so those are kind of like some of the early days. And then we raised some money from some, let's say, friends and family around. And from there, we were able to kind of hire a few more people and start scaling ourselves out. And really learn a lot more about what we're selling and the problem that we're selling, and to kind of stop at midpoint of the story. One thing we did well, and one of the lessons we did well, is that we were out there selling the product very, very early. As the 3 of us co-founders we had been around this before. We were in angel investors previously. We wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be spending our time and our money in a place that there was no customer, and so we were out there selling early, the best word is that very primitive product relative to where we are today. And that attracted value from buyers, and particularly even enterprise buyers. And it was kind of funny, like things that we've changed since January 2020 is just, the list it goes on forever. Like we had a pricing model that was wrong. Our packaging model was wrong. Our go-to-market was wrong. Well, our pricing has changed. I don't know if we got it right yet. Our pricing has changed. Our packaging has changed. Everything has changed at least 100 times since then. And now we are, from January 2020, we're, almost 2 years after that. And here we are, we've got legacy contracts on different packages, different pricing, different currencies. We wanted to increase revenue one day. So I said, okay, now we're only charging people in USD. Boom, 30% increase in revenue. And things like that all just kind of happened all at once. And so that constant iteration of ideas and changes were things that we lived through. And so we raised money again in April 2020, May, took us a while, took us a bit to get it out there. And then we raised quickly, and then we kind of started deploying that capital. At the same time, we got accepted into an accelerator out of Toronto. And so I'm really happy to see the news about Plug and Play today, because I think accelerators are a big part of the ecosystem in order to make these things happen. Because we learned so much and we've been through 2 accelerators. We've been Google for startups, Google Canada for startups, as well as Acceleprise, which is now Forum VC. And those were incredible. And so, I mean, if anybody's got ideas out there, it's really a great first case in terms of how to get yourself out to market and find an accelerator that fits your business model, that you think is your business model. At Acceleprise/Forum, they're enterprise SaaS, B2B SaaS specialization, and got so much learning from them. We still rely on them deeply for guidance and mentorship. And the same with Google. Google was incredible from a technology perspective and getting us introduction to people and getting us thinking heavily around the edge of what's possible given our technology stack. So our technology stack, so how does it work? So what ICwhatUC is, how it's different is we're an instant and on-demand connection with anybody, anywhere, or anywhere, anytime for everyone. And the key feature is that you can send an SMS to anybody around the world, and that SMS translates into an instant on-demand video call, no matter what the platform. So there's no log on, there's no download for app. It's completely a frictionless experience. And then we take that feature and we wrap it around an enterprise experience. And so work origination comes from integrations into Salesforce. We're building virtual channels for some of our customers, so they can have, customers can opt into virtual service and then execute the process that way. Pick technicians, pick calendars, all that stuff. Some of our customers, they bill through ICwhatUC. So obviously the world is now very comfortable paying for virtual service. And so now we actually create an asset for customers by recording the calls and then sending that asset back to people. So they're not just buying an experience or buying a thing, they actually get something afterwards. And so that happens in a lot of cases around customer service and support. And then we integrate that back into the system where we provide analytics and insights into what's happening. So we run empathy analytics on the data. We can transcribe all the video and all the voice, break it down into data points, and start building out like sentiment analysis, bookmarking things, or photo marking, video marking things, bookmarking things, snapshots, adding to more technicians into a call so you can have a collaboration. And all this happening in on-demand browser experience with no app being involved. A lot of the incidents now that we capture within the AI and ML begins to understand, okay, this is where you're having high levels of positivity, high levels of negativity in call. This is where your technicians are showing empathy. And why that's important is because we've learned that high degrees of empathy and positive tone have a high degree of resolution and a high degree of CSAT. And so for all of our customer satisfaction scores. And so for all of our customers, they recognize that CSAT and resolution rates are very important to them, principally because a resolution or a deflection is often a saved truck roll. So as I was talking earlier, a truck roll is around $300. So every single time they can get a virtual resolution or deflection, they're saving themselves a $300 truck roll. And then finally, after we process that information post-call, there's an aggregation of all the information so people can learn how to continuously improve, and ultimately driving out automation and self-service. So where we are today is a technician offers guided assistance. In the very near future, it's going to be AI guided assistance. And then in the long run, provide is a bot type experience for those kind of 80% of problems that are all tier 1 solutions. It's more, so it's just in the spring of 2021, raised some more capital. We're led by a fellow named Tom Williams out of Ottawa/Victoria Bay Area, Heron Rock Fund. Heron Rock, we raised with Heron Rock, we raised 1.1 US, and then we've been deploying that this year. Likely going to raise again in the spring this year to give us some bridge capital on our way to Series A. revenues are growing, and we're having a lot of experimentation around our outbound go-to-market. So I'll talk a bit about it, go-to-market. So we're a B2B enterprise play. And so, and we, we're only, I'll say commercial for almost 18, 20 months now, but really our kind of messaging momentum, I just invented that, I think. Our messaging momentum has really only begun to form itself in the last 4 or 5 months around what the problem we solve and how we solve it and how it's important. And so that, and how it should be a priority. So that messaging momentum is like, I'll say 4 to 5 months old. And so consequently, we do a lot of outbound cold calls and following up with email activity. And that's the bulk of our activity. So our team does roughly almost 5,000 outbound activities a month. So that would include on a monthly basis, every single outbound person is accountable for 340 outbound calls. They get around somewhere around, supporting that, couple hundred emails, support all that, SMSs and other meetings. So that's kind of our outbound activity in terms of messaging and getting that out there. And then we've begun supporting all of that with inbound demand, like newsletters out to existing users and newsletters out to people that are subscribed to follow us. Even lost deals, they go on our newsletter drip campaign list, and they get emails from us all the time. And so we're constantly hitting the market with ideas and awareness, obviously announcements around features and all that stuff is all happening all the time. So it is really, I'd love to call it a perpetual motion machine, but it's a high motion machine that drives a lot of our business models. So our overall financial model is based on a conversion rate that goes from those 340 outbound calls that convert into, we've got about like a 0.5% conversion rate into 2 meetings a week, or we try and develop. And those 2 meetings a week convert into, typically, we've got about a 25% conversion rate into enterprise deal. And so that's that's the momentum of the machine. And so that funnel is really powered by outbound calls that go out to bring people in. We've got inbound activity from newsletters and marketing and events like this, and then also inbound activity from our customers and associations. That's how we fill the funnel, process through our sales process, which we're always adapting, and then and ultimately it ends up as a customer, and then it goes in our customer success team. That's the business. That's how we make sausage, as the expression goes.
Guillermo, I feel like we just all went through an accelerator, and hopefully you allow us to post this recording, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs will be going, wait a minute, go back to that. Incredible detail. Thank you for sharing all of that. Like a lot of real nuggets there for entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs in the room. We will stop you there, and we'll go to the group for questions. If anyone wants to raise their hand. V does want to know what was the name of the accelerator you used. You mentioned the Google one, and
yeah, they're called Forum VC now. They're in New York, Toronto. Forum.vc. They're out of Toronto, New York, SFM, and San Francisco.
Awesome. I'll do just a quick plug too on the topic of accelerators. So as you've all seen, there's all of these accelerators coming to the province. They're all accepting applications right now, and Plug and Play just came out with more announcement yesterday around the funding they'll be providing within the province. So check out Slack or others to see how to apply for some of these accelerator programs.
And Plug and Play is a cool model because they actually have customers already.
Yeah,
so
the corporate
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah,
right. They have founding partners. I was part of the Plug and Play proposal, so it is so exciting to have them here. Absolutely. And there's an information session that the Rainforest Connector is giving next week, awesome. 4 o'clock on Tuesday, on the accelerators, where we're having Alberta Innovates, giving the landscape.
Perfect.
I assure you that you will learn more about what you don't know in an accelerator than what you do know. That's for sure.
Yeah, so that's what it's all about. Awesome. Questions, guys. I've never seen the questions go quiet. So let's, everyone's processing.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation going on.
Yeah, there is definitely, there is a lot more than usual. Very powerful presentation, Emrit says. Founders out there especially, let's pick Guillermo's brain while we have him here.
I think my head's still spinning around. There's a lot of info in there.
How big's your team? How big's your team right now?
We're 14. We're trying to hire a couple more right now. We're always kind of hiring, and there's always been a change. And, we had some turnover this year that because we started doing things a little bit differently, and people self-selected out. That happens, and so we really got. I think we've figured out. So I just a comment on that on people, and I'll just kind of get into culture. So as CEO, my job is also people and culture, right? That falls under my portfolio. So we've got, we've got a team of leaders that are accountable for different functions, and ultimately people and culture are mine. And we had we did some after Google. We came out of Google and implemented OKRs, and we've taken us about 3 quarters to really get it to. Well, it's not right yet, but we're getting better at it. Our first one was a total unmitigated disaster. It was like a tire fire in a dumpster fire. Our first time we tried it, and so we learned a lot from that. And we found that the second we started putting OKRs in place and really abiding by them, that the culture changed in the organization, and some people it was uncomfortable, and so we had to change a little bit around that, because the culture is a really weird kind of word to use a lot, because everyone talks about it. And I think that one thing that we needed to get to is we needed to get to a performing culture. And that was something that we didn't really think about when we were kind of starting. And the one thing that we, I'll say my previous company at Quattro, we were always doing client facing work. And so the client kind of helped influence the culture of our organization, and we were all consultants. Whereas like here, we're building the culture from the ground up. So it can kind of go astray on you a little bit. I'm not saying ours was astray, because we had a great culture. We had, it was incredible to work with everybody. We had good performers, but it may not have been the best culture fit for where we got to go. And so that was a bit of a lesson this year, and certainly around where we want to drive forward. And I mean, I'm incredibly grateful to have worked with everybody I've worked for my entire life. And the people that helped us start this company have been very, very impactful into where we're going to go. Just sometimes things change.
Go ahead, Peter.
Peter.
Yeah, how did you deal with the valuation question?
I mean, we start with the friends and family round. And so the friends and family round, I mean, it's a pretty basic. Hey, we were at the time we had revenue. So I think we had like 4,000 MRR USD. And so we said 4,000 MRR, we're going to go for 4 million US and raise 5. And so that was kind of our numbers. Sorry, we raised $3 million US valuation and raised 5. And so we sold out in basically 24 hours. And so it was kind of pretty easy to defend at that point. And then for the next round after that, we'd increased our revenue. Like coming into 2020, we had about, I think we were in 21 USD MRR at the beginning of the year. And that supported the valuation that we're going for, in addition to having Heron Rock come on board and substantiate the valuation. So in those early days, I mean, I don't know if everyone's ever seen the 0.9. We're a SaaS company, and so we lean on some of the metrics that are out there. But something to look at in terms of valuations is the 0.9 SaaS napkin. It is quite literally started as a napkin. They've been publishing every year since like 2012, I think. The last one that I've been able to get a hold of is from 2019, but it's very, very representative of valuation, raise, where you should be, how many people you should be. It's a very cool little grid to take a look at. So I would recommend you all take a look at that.
Awesome.
Valuation perspective.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries.
Great presentation, by the way. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Peter.
Mushir?
Hey, Guillermo. Thank you. Thank you, Brigitte.
Hey, Mushir.
It's a very, very interesting presentation, to be very honest. I am attending a program, Adjunct 2 by University of Calgary, which is being sponsored by ICTC and Calgary Economic Development. So we came to know about you as well, ICwhatUC. So it's very interesting. I just saw that you guys are helping the energy industry. Just wondering if you guys are helping some oil and gas sector as well at the same time, because we are sitting exactly in Alberta. We need people like you basically to motivate these oil and gas producers basically.
No, I would. So have you ever sold to oil and gas producers before?
Sorry, second.
Have you ever sold to oil and gas producers before?
We have seen, but the homework is going on. All the operators are doing, AI thing, and the projects are going on. They're in-house, but on the public side is not much advertised basically. So I was just wondering if you guys are also helping them.
I'll put it this way. So and this is my opinion. This is not from my life experience. So please do not chastise me for this. This is just my life experience opinion. From my perspective, the world of innovation in oil and gas has always been driven by the service providers. And so you look at going back even to fracking and whatever you want to talk about, those that create revenue. And maybe this is a reflection on the concept of price takers and price makers, right? And so price makers have always created innovation. And so in our industry, my personal lifelong observation has been that a lot of the innovation has been driven by the service providers. And so we talk to service providers principally because they have a top line motivation. From a producer perspective, they have a cost motivation, and they just don't move as quickly as those that are motivated by revenue. And so when we try and talk to service providers, it's a revenue discussion, and they're more motivated. That being said, we've got some providers that are in like the safety and the audit space because they're revenue oriented and revenue motivated, and they tend to buy a whole lot faster. And then of course, I'll say that we're motivated by fast moving companies, and we sell to a lot of utilities, which are commonly known as slow movers in terms of buys are concerned. But in the utility space, there's an interesting transformation that's happening right now in terms of the customers becoming a very important, I'll say, pivot for these organizations. They largely used to be functionally oriented and functionally driven. And so, I was a power pole guy, or I was a gas guy, or a gas person, and now they're becoming much more customer centric. And that's creating a whole lot of an awareness around how to serve the customer. And so we're getting a lot of traction in the utility space because they can save the money, and they can make it safer, they can save customers faster. And ultimately their talent pool is depleting at a really fast rate as the field technician kind of workforce is, the senior technicians are leaving at 5-to-1 rate to everyone coming in. And so they're feeling a lot of these tugs all at once. The oil and gas space, we haven't had a ton of execution success from selling to them. And I think that, given where things were for the last year, it probably was a very good answer, was that, hey, I can't afford to pay, at whatever the price of oil was last year, the average price of oil, there wasn't a lot of discretionary expenditure for innovation. It was really about keeping the lights on. And so I'm okay with a no, as long as it's a quick no, rather than a long drawn out no. And everyone we're pitching to in oil and gas, they were pretty quick no's last year. And so we move on.
But it's a chain reaction, once one producer will start, then everybody would be starting, to be very
without a doubt, they very much follow one another. And everyone, as we're all familiar in this ecosystem, they often work for multiple companies at the same. This is also why it's a benefit to go to service providers, because they end up touching more producers than a single producer. But point taken. I guess now there's more discretionary income to have those conversations around innovation in oil and gas.
Can I ask one more question, Guillermo?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wondering if you guys have some program for the students where they can get some training or practicum, on the projects which you guys develop or something?
We're still working that through. I mean, at a 14-person organization, we don't have a ton of spare capacity to do that. We're looking towards doing that. Like after we hit 20, 22 people, we'll have a little bit more spare cycles. But right now, everyone's doing everything all the time, and it would be, I think, it would be a negative experience from an onboarded student because there's literally a lot, things are happening every single day, and for that experience to be structured and maybe in a 4-month time cycle, you've got to have a little bit more oversight and structure to be able to execute on that. We're still, our Scrum teams are like 5 people, 6 people. I mean, if we get to 8, 9, you can absorb a student, but like at 5, 6, everyone's delivering every day.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate questions.
Great. So where we're going to go now, thanks so much, Guillermo. We're going to head into breakout rooms, which is where the magic happens, where you'll have the opportunity to, if you by chance get in a room with Guillermo, you can pick his brain further or just get to know each other a little better. So if there's an ask you'd like to put out to the community, please don't be shy. That's why we're all here. And for those who've been around the block a little bit, please be forthright with your feedback or resources that you can offer others. So I'll open the rooms. We'll do probably 2 rounds of this. Don't be shy. Have fun, and we'll see you all soon. Sorry, that was a quick one.
I will say, Bridget, there were some good questions, general questions that came up in my breakout, if I could.
Sure.
Where they were saying, what is an accelerator? And that's a pretty reasonable 101 question. And so I'll give mine, and then I'll go over to Guillermo. But incubators are, sometimes these words are used interchangeably. Incubators are, they often provide facilities as well as access to programs, and that accelerators are more of a program, a business program, as well as they have networks and other expertise. And then the Alberta accelerators that we were talking about the plug and play, and there's the 500, the Alchemists, are being offered Alberta-wide to companies Alberta-wide. They will have a presence in Edmonton and Calgary. The government of Alberta Innovates, has put most of the bill, but certainly the OSIF and Edmonton Innovates are putting in funding too. So that's part of the bigger story. But yes, that's why we're having a connector session next week with more information. Guillermo, you want to add anything about accelerators?
Yeah, I would say the biggest part of accelerators that I love about, as a person who is an entrepreneur, is that they are for profit. And so they invest in companies that have good ideas. They've got a portfolio thesis around how many investors, how many companies they invest in, who they invest in, how they invest. They'll write you a check for 100K US, right? So they're in. And then they're going to be motivated over 16 weeks to convert your business to something that's viable. And they take losses, right? And so they get evaluated on who comes in and how it's evaluated, and their process. So they've got a very structured process, and they're producing a company that can go up for funding. And then they get to, because they're for profit, they get marked up when they raise money, right, at a higher multiple. And so then they get to mark up their fund. And so understanding the fund dynamics of how these funds work is very important. And know that you're part of the piece of the puzzle. Like, you're not, they're not investing you because you're a special snowflake. You're investing you because you're part of the snow field, and that's how they're going to get paid. And so it's important to understand how everyone gets. I would say that
that is important.
Know how people are getting paid.
Yeah, I would also add that the Alberta accelerators are paid for by the government. And so the companies don't have to pay to participate. And not all of them take equity, and not all of them will invest in you, I think is your point, Guillermo. But sorry, yeah. I'll turn it over to you, Bridget.
Yeah, sorry, I hate to cut that conversation off, because that's awesome. And we can stay online for anyone who's still available. And big thanks to you, Guillermo, for sharing with us today. We really appreciate it. That was an awesome presentation. I want to make a quick announcement. Well, it's always announcement time now, but Al has left the room. Al Deldegan has been running the Libby podcast, Leaders, Innovators, and Big Ideas, supported by Rainforest Alberta for over a couple years now. Al devotes all of his time to producing this podcast on a volunteer basis. It's incredible the amount of work he puts into producing a show every single week. He's always looking for guests. He's always looking for hosts. He asked me to share with you all that he's still looking for hosts. We are having a podcast awards ceremony on November 25th at 4:30. It's virtual. All can attend. I'm putting this out there to the community. Please get in touch with Amber or I. We would love a tiny little clip of any experience or times Al has given back to you or has helped you, so we can make a bit of a montage for him. He has no idea that we will be recognizing him. So all 50, however many of you, don't say a word. This is top secret to surprise Al at the end of the awards ceremony with a bit of a tribute to him, and he'll be receiving a lovely, generous gift as well from a sponsor of ours. So if you could provide just a really quick video of yourself of how Al has contributed to your journey, it would be awesome. Please don't put it off. We really want to pay it forward in the spirit of everything Al's done for our community. So I'm going to throw that out there. It's Innovation Week in Calgary in a few weeks, so we can throw a link with all those other activities happening around. The podcast awards is just one of many events. Launch Party was just announced their finalist for that is the biggest event in Calgary tech, really. So get your tickets for Launch Party. We can put the Innovation Week link in there. Lots of other exciting things happening at this time of year in technology. So pay attention to all of our social channels where we share that information. And any other community announcements, go. Sorry to take up so much time talking about Al.
Looks like we're good.
Good. All right. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.